So recently I saw a video by MNJTV where he gives every gym leader a team as if they were the last gym leader. And it kind of got me wanting to do my own version of it. But instead of making every gym leader the last gym leader, I'd make every gym leader the first gym leader. Now on paper this sounds really simple, but it was a bit more challenging than I expected. So some things I tried to keep in mind when making these custom first gym leader teams for every gym leader is that they'd only get a Pokemon that was available to them in their respective region, so no Generation 8 Pokemon for a Kanto gym leader for example. I only give a gym leader a Pokemon that isn't their type if it either makes sense for them or I have no other choice. And I try my best to give every gym leader at least one Pokemon within their respective region. Also, if there is a gym leader who is already the first gym leader, and I don't like their team, I may tweak them a bit, just to see what I would personally give them. So with all that out of the way, here is if every Pokemon gym leader was the first gym leader. Starting with Brock's team would be Geodude and Onix. Obviously, since he's already the first gym leader. And I think I'd keep this team the same. The other rock types in Kanto aren't really associated with Brock, so Geodude and Onix shouldn't really change. Misty's team would be Psyduck and Staryu. Goldeen would also make sense, but Psyduck is definitely more synonymous with Misty, in not only the anime, but it was also the first Pokemon she uses in the Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee games. Starmie is her Starmon, no pun intended, so having the pre-evolved form would also make the most sense. Lieutenant Surge would have Voltorb and Pikachu. Every main series team Surge has always had a part of the Voltorb line, with Raichu as Surge's star Pokemon in the anime as well. Magnemite is also a possible first Pokemon, but since Surge has used Voltorb more, it makes a bit more sense in my opinion. Erika's gym team would be Oddish and Tangela. The three most recurring Pokemon appearing on Erika's team are the Oddish line, the Bellsprout line, and Tangela, with either Vileplume or Gloom being the main Pokemon. So Oddish makes the most sense to keep of the three. Both Oddish and Bellsprout evolve at level 21, so it's possible that Gloom could be the ace of the team. But with this team I think Tangela works well. Koga's team would be Koffing and Venonat. Koga's gym leader teams have changed around quite a bit within the Kanto games, and he eventually dropped the Koffing line in future gens, however has always been on his gym teams, using 3 of the line in red and blue. His whole team in yellow was the Venonat line, with Venomoth eventually becoming his ace, so these two in my opinion work really well for a starting gym, with Grimer being a solid third choice as well. His daughter Janine's team would be Zubat and Venonat. Janine's ace was also Venomoth for a while, eventually becoming Crobat, so having those two for a team would make perfect sense. Although I did consider having Spinarak as well, since she also uses Ariados. But since this is the first gym for the Kanto region, I think only using Gen 1 Pokemon makes a bit more sense. Sabrina would have Slowpoke and Kadabra. She usually uses 2 of the Abra line, so it's possible she could start with an Abra instead, but Abra can't really hurt the opponent, so I think Slowpoke would work better, even if Sabrina hasn't really used much of the Slowpoke line before. Kadabra obviously makes sense as the ace. Abra only takes until level 16 to evolve, and Sabrina is way too associated with the Abra line to use something else. Blaine's team would be Ponyta and Growlithe. So fun fact, despite Magmar being Blaine's star Pokemon in the anime, he hasn't used one nearly as much in the games, especially compared to Ponyta and the Growlithe line. Plus Magmar might be a little too strong for a first gym ace, compared to others especially, so given that the Ponyta and the Growlithe line has pretty much always been on his teams in the games, it only makes sense to make it his first gym team here. Giovanni's team would be Diglett and Rhyhorn. Meowth could also be a possible first Pokemon as well, since he has used a Persian in some of his gym teams. However, I feel like both Pokemon should be ground type, given that he is the ground gym leader, with Rhyhorn being the ace, along with Diglett, since those two lines are the ones that he's probably used the most, in terms of his gym teams. Giovanni also is known for using Nidoking and Nidoqueen, however none of their previous evolutions are ground type. Blue's gym team would be Pidgey and Eevee. The Pidgey line has not only been on most of Blue's teams, but was also the first Pokemon he caught in the Gen 1 games. And Eevee makes the most sense as the ace Pokemon, since his starter in the previous games was always determined by the player's starter. Falkner's gym team would be Hoot Hoot and Pidgeotto. Yes, despite Falkner already being a first gym leader, I am still slightly changing it. I am not a fan of Johto gym leaders not using any Johto native Pokemon, especially when they're both of the same line. And with Falkner being the first gym leader who is also a flying type gym leader, having the starting bird, in my opinion, makes much more sense than having two of a previous gen. So this is the team I'd change it to. Bugsy's team would be Yanma and Scyther. Bugsy also had all Gen 1 Pokemon in his original team, so the main Johto bugs I had to pick from were Spinarak and Yanma. Spinarak makes more sense on paper, since it's the starting bug of the region. However, Bugsy has never used one before, and he has used a Yanmega in Heart Gold and Soul Silver multiple times, with Scyther eventually becoming a Scizor. So Yanma and Scyther make the most sense in my opinion. Whitney's team would be Miltank and nothing else. Moving on. Morty's team would be Ghastly and Misdreavus. The Ghastly is obvious, and the Misdreavus is a Gen 2 ghost that he eventually gets on his team. Chuck's team would be Tyrogue and Mankey. None of Poliwrath's pre-evolutions are fighting type, so it wouldn't make much sense to have them on his first gym team. Tyrogue is the pre-evolution of Pokemon he eventually uses, so Tyrogue and Mankey I think would suit him well. Jasmine's team would be Magnemite and Skarmory. Her usual ace is Steelix. However, Steelix in my opinion is too strong for a first gym leader trainer, and Onix isn't a steel type. Magnemite is part of her original team, and Skarmory is the only other Gen 2 steel type that she eventually uses, so these would be my picks. Price's team would be Swinub and Sneasel. Seal isn't an ice type, yet, but is a non-ice type that Price uses. However, I still picked two other ice types to be on his team. Piloswine was his original ace, although it doesn't evolve until past level 30, so Swinub makes more sense for the first gym. And Weavile eventually becomes his last Pokemon at the Pokemon World Tournament, so Sneasel I think would work good as the main Pokemon if he was the first gym leader. Claire's team would be Horsey and Dratini, or Dratini and Seadra, if you want to have an under-leveled Seadra, since Horsey does evolve at level 32. This is one of the few cases where I have almost no choice but to give a gym leader at least one Pokemon that doesn't match their type, as the only dragon type that was introduced in Gen 2 was Kingdra, whose previous evolutions were not dragon type. Even when Claire had 6 Pokemon in Heart Gold and Soul Silver, Kingdra and Dragonite were the only dragon types, so Dratini and one of the Horsey line makes the most sense for Claire's first gym leader team in my opinion. Roxanne's team would be Geodude and Nosepass. This is her actual first gym team, and in my opinion works perfectly fine as it is. Brawly would have Meditite and Makuhita, the same as his actual gym team, however I picked Meditite over Machop to give him an all-Hoenn team, but Machop would still be a good third pick. Watson would have Magnemite and Electrike. Out of Magnemite and Voltorb, Magneton was his ace in Ruby and Sapphire, with Manectric becoming his main Pokemon in Emerald. So having these as his first gym team would definitely make the most sense in my opinion. Flannery's team would be Slugma and Torkoal. Torkoal is her main Pokemon, and the Slugma line is the only other Pokemon she's used in all of her teams. Numel makes arguably more sense since it's Generation 3, but I think Slugma would be more likely. Norman's team would be Slakoth and Vigoroth. This line is easily the Pokemon Norman uses the most, so having Slakoth and its evolution fit perfectly. Spinder would also be a good third choice, or even second choice, since it's his most used Pokemon outside of the Slakoth line, but I think Slakoth and its evolution suit his first gym a little bit better. Wynona's team would be Swablu and Swellow. Altaria is her main Pokemon, so Swablu makes perfect sense. I was thinking about having Taylor as well, but I think Swellow would be fine as her ace in the first gym, since a team of Taylor and Swablu would make for a pretty weak combination. Tate and Liza would use Solrock and Lunatone. Yeah, there's no other Pokemon I could even consider replacing them here. My picks for Wallace's team are Lovedisk and Celio. So Wallace is a tricky one. His ace Pokemon is obviously Milotic, but Feebas in my opinion is way too weak to have on any gym team, and Milotic is way too strong for a first gym. I considered other water types like Lombre and Welmer being possibly his main Pokemon in the first gym, but those lines of Pokemon are always on his champion team instead, so I think Lovedisk and a slightly underleveled Celio would work best. Juan's team would be Spheal and Corphish. Juan was also a pretty difficult one as well. I could have easily have given him the same team as Wallace, but I wanted to differentiate him a bit. His ace Pokemon is Kingdra, like Claire, but I did want to change things up a bit, as well as giving him more Hoenn Pokemon. Sphere works well, since it can act as a nice callback to Wallace's first gym ace, and Corphish is a water type that Wallace has never used, whereas Juan has used the line in multiple of his teams. Rock's team would be Geodude, Onix, and Craniados. So outside of Roxanne's Emerald team, this is the only time where a first gym leader of a region has at least 3 Pokemon on their team in every main series game they're in. So that does beg the question whether I'd give every Sinnoh gym leader at least 3 Pokemon as well. Maybe. If Rock's team was only 2 Pokemon, I'd take out the Onix, but since he has 3 Pokemon anyway, I figured I'd just keep it the same. Gardenia's team would be Cherubi and Roselia, with Turtwig as the third. Roserade is her main Pokemon, so the pre-evolution makes perfect sense. And so does Cherubi. Turtwig is the other Pokemon usually on her team, although not gonna lie, I would rather pick something that wasn't a starter, so possibly Tangela instead, since it does eventually evolve into Tangrowth, but either works. Maylene's team would be Meditite and Riolu, with Machop as the third Pokemon. This was already her regular team, just with pre-evolutions, so carrying it over makes perfect sense. Crusher Wake would have Wooper and Buizel, with Shellos as the third. The first 2 carry from his regular team. His usual third Pokemon is Gyarados, but that Pokemon would be too strong for a first gym, and Magikarp is way too weak, so if he were to have a third Pokemon, I would pick Shellos. He doesn't use the line until the Pokemon World Tournament in Generation 5, but I still think it would fit well in a gym team, as well as another 4th gen Pokemon for him to use. Fantina would have Drifloon and Mischievous, with the third Pokemon being Ghastly. They took away the Drifloon line in Platinum when she was the 3rd gym leader, but I completely disagree with this, considering it's a 4th gen ghost, and her team, as well as dress, is themed around this ghost line. Miss Magius is also her ace, so these 2 ghosts make perfect sense on her team, and if she were to have a 3rd ghost type, she'd of course have part of the Gengar line. Byron's team would be Bronzor and Shieldon, with Magnemite as the possible 3rd mon. The first 2 are Gen 4 steel types he uses on his Diamond and Pearl team, so they make the most sense in my opinion. Steelix is also part of the team, but that mon is a bit too strong for a first gym, and Onix isn't a steel type. So Magnemite, whose evolved forms was part of his Platinum team, fits the 3rd role best. Candice's team would be Snorunt and Snover, with Swinub as a 3rd option. Abomasnow was her ace in Diamond and Pearl, with Frostlass becoming her new ace in Platinum, so the pre-evolutions fit her first gym perfectly. Swinub would also be the 3rd option, since it eventually evolves into a Gen 4 ice type. Volkner's team would be Pikachu and Luxio, with Elekid as the 3rd option. The Pikachu and Shinx lines are the Pokemon that he's used the most, with Luxray being his most well-known Pokemon, as well as Pikachu being his main partner in the anime. If he were to have a 3rd Pokemon, I'd go with Elekid, since Electivire does eventually become his main Pokemon in Platinum. The 3 monkey gym leaders all have Lillipup and one of the monkeys, and I wouldn't change anything here. Both Cheren and Lenora would have Lillipup and Patrat. These are the pre-evolved forms of Lenora's regular team, and this is already Cheren's gym team, and since they're both the normal type Unova gym leaders, these being the teams make perfect sense. Roxy's gym team would be Koffing and Whirlipede. This is the same as her regular gym team. I could have had Venipede instead, but Venipede is very weak, and Whirlipede in my opinion would work perfectly fine as our ace in the first gym. Burke's team would be Dwebble and an underleveled Swabloon. These are the lines he uses in both Black and White 2. Swadloon I think would work better than Sewaddle, since Sewaddle is much noticeably weaker, with Swadloon not being that strong in the first place. Elisa's team would be Emolga and Blitzel, carrying on from her regular gym team, using Zebstriker's pre-evolved form instead. Joltik is also an option for a possible 3rd slot. Clay's team would be Sandile and Drillbur. These are also Pokemon lines he already uses. Palpitoad is also an option, however he ditched it in Black and White 2. Even so, Tympole would be a possible 3rd Pokemon for him. Skylar's team would be Ducklet and Tranquil, I like the idea of the first flying gym leader using the starting bird. Ducklet is way too weak of an ace in my opinion, so serves as a good starting Pokemon. Swoobat on the other hand would also be a good ace Pokemon, possibly instead of Tranquil, or even Woobat being a third Pokemon option. Bryson would have Cubchoo and Cryogonal. Cryogonal slightly on the stronger side in terms of Pokemon you'd find on a first gym leader, but I still think it would work pretty well here. Beartic is his usual ace Pokemon, but Cubchoo is pretty weak as an ace, with Beartic being a bit too strong for a first gym, so Cubchoo works fine as the starting Pokemon. Vanillite would be a good third pick, since the ice cream Pokemon were on his original team. Both Drayden and Iris would have Axew and Druddigon. Even though I think it would be cooler for them to have a slightly different team, I decided to give them both the same one. Like Cryogonal, Druddigon is on the stronger side of first gym Pokemon, but this is a dragon type gym we're talking about here. Then because Haxorus is both their aces, Axew makes perfect sense to also have on the team. Dino is also an option, but isn't used by either of them until Black and White 2. So I guess it could act as a possible third option. Marlin would have Tortuga and Frillish. Both of these are Gen 5 water type pre-evolutions he has on his team, so makes the most sense for them to be on his first gym team. Viola's team would be Surskit and Vivian, and I wouldn't change anything at all. Grant's team would be Amora and Tyrant, and again I wouldn't change anything. Karina's team would be Mienfoo and Hawlucha. The only other Gen 6 fighting type option there is Pancham, but she never uses one, and Hawlucha is already her ace Pokemon, so even though it is pretty strong for a first gym Pokemon, I think it will make do here. Machamp would also work as a third Pokemon. Riolu could also possibly work on her team, but she never uses the line on any of her gym teams. Ramos' team would be Skiploom and Skiddo, the pre-evolved forms of his already existing team, outside of course of the Bellsprout line. Bellsprout or Whippinbell could also work as a third mon. Clement's team would be Magnemite and Helioptile, again the pre-evolved forms of his already existing team. Emolga is the third option, but I think Magnemite matches his tech whiz personality a bit more. Next, here's where things are going to be a bit different. So Valerie's regular gym team is Mawile, Mr. Mime, and Sylveon. Sylveon in my opinion is too strong for a first gym, and Eevee isn't a fairy type. Now I could easily go with her team being something like Mime Jr. and Mawile, but none of those two Pokemon are Generation 6. So what I've decided to do is make her team Spritzee and Swirlix. While she hasn't really used any of these lines, aside from Spritzee in the anime, these are probably the best pair of fairies to pick from the Kalos Pokemon available. They may not be accurate to her team, but considering gym leaders do change their teams over time, and sometimes every now and then, I think having these two as our first gym team would work really well. Olympia's team would be Slowpoke and Meowstic. These again carry over from her regular team, with Meowstic as a solid star Pokemon. Sigilyph is already pretty strong, so using the other two mons I think would work great. And Wulfric's team would be Snova and Bergmite. His third Pokemon is already another gym leader's ace Pokemon, so having the pre-evolutions of the other two mons, one of them being his main Pokemon, would work perfectly fine here. Milo's team would be Gossifleur and Eldegoss. This is the same as his regular team and I wouldn't change it. Nessa's team would be Arrokuda and Dreadnought, the same as her regular team minus the Goldeen, which would work fine as a third mon. Kabu's team would be Vulpix and Sizzlipede. These again are pre-evolutions of Pokemon on his regular team, and I chose Vulpix over Growlithe since I've already given Growlithe to other gym leaders, and not Vulpix, although Growlithe would be the third choice. Bee's team would be Machop and Galarian Farfetch'd. Machamp is her Gigantamax form, and Galarian Farfetch'd would be her Gen 8 pick, so solid picks for a fighting type first gym in my opinion. Alice's team would be Galarian Yamask and Galarian Corsola. Even though Gengar is his Gigantamax form, I like the idea of him using the new Ghost Gala forms. Otherwise Ghastly or Haunter would also be a good ace on his team. Opal would have Togepi and Alcremie. Alcremie is already a strong ace, so having a weak Pokemon like Togepi I think would balance out the team well. Mawile is also a good third choice, although the combination of Mawile and Alcremie may be a bit strong for a first gym. Giving Bede a gym leader team, his would be Hatenna and Kirlia. Bede is a weird one, since he started out as a psychic type trainer who eventually becomes a fairy type gym leader, with some of his team being fairy types that started out as just psychic types. So keeping this in mind, Hatenna and Kirlia I think would probably be the best options. Hatenna is his main Pokemon, while the ROXANNE acts almost like a counterpart, so having these two I think would fit pretty well. Gordy's team would be Binacle and Carkol. These are two pre-evolutions of Pokemon that are already on his team, and I also like the idea of the two rock types on his team being opposite types as well. Melanie would have Snom and Ice-Q. Lapras is a bit too thick to have as the star Pokemon on the first gym, but Ice-Q I think would work really well, along with Frostmoth's pre-evolution, and Galarian Darumaka would also be a good third choice. Pierce's team would be Stunky and Galarian Linoon. Stunky because him and Stone Tank could definitely be hair buddies, and Linoon because Obstagoon is his main Pokemon. Scraggy would also be a good third option, since they're both hoodlums. Marnie's team would be Impidimp and Morpeko. Morpeko was her signature Pokemon that's been on all of her teams since the beginning, with Grimmsnarl eventually becoming her Gigantamax Pokemon. Purloin would be a good third option, since she does look like someone who would have one as a pet. And the last gym leader to go over is Raihan, who is a pretty difficult one. Only half of his regular gym team consists of dragon types, with only one becoming a dragon type when it's fully evolved, and the other being a Pokemon that doesn't evolve, having stats higher than you'd see in a first gym. So because Duraludon's stats are so high, and it's his star Pokemon, I think just having Duraludon as his Pokemon would be fair. Although if I were to give him a second Pokemon, I'd probably go with either Silicobra, since he does use a Sandaconda to set up sandstorms, or Droopy. But again, since Duraludon is so strong, it being the only Pokemon he has I think would be fair. And just for the sake of the video, I'll also cover the Island Kahunas of Alola. With Hala being the first of only 4 Kahunas, and having a team of 3, I'll be giving all the other Kahunas a team of 3. His original team consists of Mankey, Makuhita and Crabrawler, and I wouldn't make any changes here. Olivia's team would be Nosepass, Rug'n'Roller and Rockruff. They're the same as her regular team, except all pre-evolutions instead. Nano's team would be the same as his regular team, being Sableye, Sandile and Alolan Meowth, again only being pre-evolutions. And finally, Hapu's team would be Alolan Diglett, Shellos and Mudbray. This again being the pre-evolution form of her team, minus the Flygon. And there you go, my take on if every gym leader was the first one. It was very time consuming to go through every gym leader there is in Pokemon so far, but still a fun video to make nonetheless. And if you did enjoy it and would like to see more Pokemon videos like this, please do leave a like, as it does help the video out. Subscribe for more Pokemon content in the future, and until next time, thank you so much for watching.